Okay, so this whole Cesar Chavez, I was gonna call it a debacle, but I guess it's this recent discovery of him being an abusive individual, kind of on the level of like Jeffrey Epstein, but maybe not in the sense of like having an island, but more of just like having being the central figure of power that everybody kind of runs through in terms of getting people who look like him and other Hispanic individuals, workers' rights, and farm workers' unions and things of that sort, turning out that he was had a cult like mindset. His grooming people from the ages from like 8, and then uh like meeting. I don't know how this grooming thing works, but like you meet somebody like 8 and then you like assault them when they're 13. I think that's how it works. I don't know. There was a story about that, and then his partner in forming the United Workers Union, um, Farm United Workers Farm Union of Huerta, Miss Huerta. I think he raped her twice, and then got pregnant both times, and then gave the children away. I think it was, yeah. So that whole that, and then with the recent discovery of the letter of him writing it to, I think one of his victims who was a child back then, and it being discovered at a library or something. I don't know where the letter was discovered. I'm gonna have more information on it in the description, but essentially, bad person, not good person. Um, Again, a person in the center of for my little idea. I feel like if you're a person who's like has a giant amount of power and like you're the very central figure of that power, no matter what it is, there's probably going to be something about it that's like iffy, if not completely not great. So there's that. The other thing I want to talk about is everybody in America always talks about education. Education is very important, but everybody in America gets upset about the education system failing when they find out something that they feel like they should have known, or they feel like history was hiding from them. I can understand this effect in regards to uh, like like during 2020 we talked about slavery and all this other stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, there were black people who were in the Civil War, and there were all this other stuff, like the learning about Christopher Columbus and how he chopped the hands off of people, and just horrific things that all these people have done and all these things that have happened through history. And everybody's talking about like, I feel that school has led us astray and like has purposely taught us not these things. I can kind of see how that's true, but I also can just kind of see how it's like in reference to the Cesar Chavez stuff. Like when Caesar raped her twice, probably more, and she had children twice and had to give them away twice, she didn't tell anybody for years. Maybe she did at some point later, and like I haven't researched this entire thing yet. I just kind of saw a video on it. I've seen a few little short clippets of it, whatever. Anyway, so like she had talked about as people who are in who people who are already in really bad communities and communities that like people don't like, and then something happens to you. You can't really tell anybody within the community because within that community they all aren't going to believe you because in this aspect of machismo and all this other stuff, we're dealing with I'm just gonna call it Hispanic culture, but I don't know what other term it would be. With machismo and all that stuff, like you don't really mm, speaking out. A, I don't think is frowned upon, and then B, believing someone once they speak out is probably not something that happens well. And then you talk about how you go to the police, and already back then, police don't like you, so it's just like this whole issue of um, you no matter what, you won't know what you don't know, and you can't teach what you can't know. So in regards to a lot of these public educations or these schools or people talking about how education failed them, I think in some respects you can say yes, but in other respects it's just like I don't even think they don't schools themselves don't sit down and like go over each textbook. Maybe some do, but I think in general they just get a textbook from the state. The state says teach this, and they're like, okay, great. So it's not like this school or anybody within the school is trying to force you to not learn these things. If anything, well, no, that's it. So yeah, it's just it's a huge mess. It's a shame. It's great that everything I think is being renamed at some point. Everybody talks about, well, what do we rename these things as? And I'm just like, well, maybe trees or something. I don't know, trees and dead trees and dead slaves who led rebellions. I think that'd be a good one. But I don't know. Everybody has this obsession with naming things after somebody. I don't think you need to name anything after anyone. Because even like people like short story. I was doing a paper. I was asking for help from another person within the school. This was in college. I don't know what the fucking paper was about, but essentially politics came up, and she was like, "Can you guess who my favorite president was?" And I'm like, "Obama." She goes, "Yep." And I'm just like, "Okay, great." I don't know. I forgot what the fucking video was about, or the essay was about. The thing I remember about it was, if you've ever seen the movie, what's that one with the Get Out? You know, you know how the white lady's smiling like this. That's how the teacher smiled when she said it. I was like, okay, great. Um, yeah. So there's that. And it only made it funnier because it's in a very liberal town, like very liberal school, so legit. Yeah. So you can't teach what you don't know, and you can't not teach what you don't know. Just be glad people know things now. It's kind of like discovering. It's like discovering a new solar system or a new planet that has exploded. When you do that, they take a photo, but it takes a certain number of years for that photo to be taken. So by the time you see the photo, that explosion in space happened like 2 billion years ago or something. Um, I'm not explaining it very well. Scientists can explain it better, but essentially that's what's happening, and it's kind of like that with education. Something happened. You don't know what happened unless you have a camera on it, and then you realize, oh, this happened this many years ago, and all this other stuff. So anyway, that's it. That's all I got. Bad guy, bad things, and yeah, maybe I'll do a video on what other people. I don't know. I'll figure something out. Bye.